talk about the normal things you need to do for an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting. And then at the very end, I'm going to talk about some considerations and especially to be doing because of school closures and COVID-19. So my name is Shemica Allen. I am the owner of Personalized Learning Solutions. This is a special advocacy consulting firm. I am a former special ed teacher and administrator. I'm a diehard Texan. I am from East Texas, but left for a little bit and went to the University of Arkansas and came back, and then also went to TCU. So I was a special ed administrator over a middle school in DFW and a high school. I have also done vocational training and been a vocational adjustment coordinator for a couple of districts in the area. So on top of running my business, I also do vocational rehabilitation services with Texas Workforce, with job skills training and job placement. And now I am starting to teach for a national advocacy association in the country, teaching people how to advocate and how to correctly advocate for their children. On top of that, I'm also an officer on the Special Education Advisory Committee for Texas, and I was appointed to that in December 2017. So we work TA on what we see going on in the state of Texas as far as special education and trying to improve special education in the state. So today's presentation, and I'm going to go back and forth, say IEP, ARD meeting. I do that because I work with advocates around the country. And as you know, Texas, we're the only people that call them ARD meetings. So I've conditioned myself to /ARD meeting. So today you're going to learn what actions and resources needed to properly advocate and prepare for your child's IEP meeting or 504 meeting. You're also going to learn some key things to do before, during, and after your IEP or 504 meeting. And then we're going to talk about some specific actions you need to take because of school closures and COVID-19. So I've got some cartoons here up on the screen. And this is the way I know I feel coming out of IEP meetings sometimes and 504 meetings. So one of my favorites here is a little lady with military fatigue on, and she says, "I'm all prepared for the IEP meeting, cover me, I'm going in." Then I have another one on the screen where you have two people sitting across from a table of about 10 people. I know that's how some parents feel, you know, all the time when they go to you against the school district. But then another little funny cartoon I have where people are sitting at the table and the school personnel are trying to get this paperwork and telling them, here's a 50-page copy of your rights. Now sign here, 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 and here. And nobody's explaining anything to them. So I put these up because you know, working with parents all over the state and now out of the state too, these are some of the sentiments, the way parents feel when they're dealing with school district feeling overwhelmed and they feel like they've just been forced to sign a document. So the last one I want to talk about on the screen is it talks about I survived the IEP day without needing for bail money or body bags. And I hate that parents have to feel that way, but I think these little 5 cartoons capture completely the way you parents feel. And also, I think me and Cynthia forgot to say, this presentation is on the Texas Parent to Parent website, so you can go to it and download it. Also, Texas, is it P, you know?
TX, P as in Paul, the number 2, P as in Paul.org.
.org, yes.
On the right-hand side of the website.
So the exact presentation I'm going through today, I did add 2 things to it, and we'll talk about the 2 things I added, but the copy that's on their website is the exact thing I'm showing you today. So we're gonna get right into it. This is what I need parents to remember, and professionals also. Federal disability laws still apply. And if I get to talking too fast, someone let me know, because I get very passionate about this. And then 2, I just talk fast in general. So I will try to keep it at an appropriate pace. But I need you to know the 3 federal laws that apply to students with disabilities, they are still in effect. Nothing has changed. So you have your Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, you have Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which allows for 504 plans for students, and then Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. These are still in effect. However, do remember the U.S. Department of Education is allowing some flexibility with these. And an example of that is with evaluations. We understand that face-to-face and in-person pieces of an evaluation cannot be done right now. But some of that, the timelines may be a little extended we're used to here in the state of Texas. So that's where the flexibility is coming in. But a LEA, a local school district, they cannot tell you that they cannot do certain things in the pandemic. The federal laws still apply. So let's talk about what you need to be doing right now as we prepare to go back to school and during the school year. Most students who have a 504 plan and have an IEP, you will be assigned a contact person. That person, your child's case manager. You need to find out who that person is as soon as possible. That is your first point of contact when you have an issue with anything concerning your child at school, whether it's their IEP or something going on in a class. Your first point of contact needs to be your child's case manager. You need to have their email address. You also need to stay in contact with teachers once school gets started back. Whether your child's in a self-contained class, they're moving throughout general education, you need to be in contact with teachers. And then any other important people of your IEP or 504 plan team. If your child is receiving OT services and PT services, speech therapy, you need to know who all these people are. The next thing you need to be doing is you need to be gathering your paperwork. You need to be making an IEP or 504 plan. Now, for some of us who are technology savvy, like, I like technology, there are free online data storages that you can use. You get certain amount of storage with Google Drive, amount of storage with Dropbox that is free. You can also upload your documents there if you want to go the technology route and not necessarily make I like the 3-ring binder too. So those are just what you need to be doing right now. And then I suggest you set up an email account just for communicating with school district personnel. So it doesn't get mixed up with your personal email. Set up a separate email account. It could be your child's school, Google Hotmail, your child's name. And anytime you communicate with the school district or school personnel, it is in that email account. And then you can also, if needed to, you can print out some of those emails if needed and put in your binder that we're going to talk about here in a second. So it just keeps you from having to run through your personal emails and looking for emails and things like that. If you don't want to create a separate email address, some of like Gmail, you can create folder just for your child's emails with your child's school district, and you can move those emails into that folder. But I strongly suggest a separate email account. And then right now, I know with everything going on with COVID, just something else for parents to do, you've got to be collecting data on your child, whether they, I would say if they have an IEP or a 504 plan, because what I'm going to talk about here in a minute, children move between IEPs and 504 plans. So you need to be collecting data. I have some data collection sheets that can be made available to you, but especially when we start talking about compensatory services and you're asking for certain services because your child missed certain services at the end of last school year, you've got to have data to support that. So I know it's something additional for parents to do, but if you really want compensatory services, you want to change something in your child's IEP, you've got to be collecting your data. So like I said, on this slide is all the things you should be doing, starting to do right now to prepare for the school year and constantly during the school year. Stay in contact with your team, make you a binder or some kind of online document storage, set up your email account, and we've got to be collecting data, especially as your child is starting virtually. Like I said, some of you might have heard talking before, Here in Dallas-Fort Worth, in the Dallas County, students cannot go back to face-to-face until September 8th. So everyone living in Dallas County is starting virtually. So you need to be collecting data, especially if you're trying to look at some regression and recoupment issues for your child and for asking for compensatory service. Like I said before, I do have some data sheets that are available that I can get out to everyone, and I think Cynthia can help me get them out if you don't have any collecting data. All right, so let's talk about what goes in this binder, and I call it the binder / Bible. And who has about three ring binder, big binders of all her child's paperwork. So one, I would maybe use dividers and make you tabs. So you want your child's most recent IEP or 504 plan. If you have two of those, two would be good, but you want the most recent. You want your most current FIE, that is full individual evaluation. If you have any evaluation from outside providers, if you've gotten for independent education evaluation paid for by the school district, if you have outside speech, if you have any ABA, if you have any kind of evaluations from providers, they need to go here. If your child is on an IEP, you should be getting progress reports in concurrent with school report cards. This is where your next tab, I would put your IEP progress reports. Next, any work samples you have. That's another thing you need to be asking for during the school year. I'm hard virtually with virtual distance learning is you need to be collecting work samples. Next tab, any data collection sheets that you have where you've been keeping data on your child, whether they're on a 504 plan. With 504 plans, a child can have accommodations and a behavior plan. You can also get some services under a 504 plan, but that's for another later discussion on another day. But collecting data about even how your child's doing with virtual learning. Next, I have all of my clients and parents do this. They write a vision statement for their child. This is part of your meaningful parent participation in an IEP meeting that goes into the present levels. In a vision statement, I have parents write about where they see their child in 1 to 5 years, their short-term goals, whether it's functional goals, education goals, long-term goals, short-term goals for a school year, long-term goals, and we're looking at a high school career, years in high school, and we submit of the present levels in an IEP meeting. As far as a 504 meeting, I also have it submitted and my parents read it. So in addition to reading them at the meetings, we submit them and make them part of that current IEP or 504 plan. Now this number 7, this is because of COVID-19 and the school closures. Many of you probably had your child's services change because of the school closures and COVID. Those were done through several different forms, different districts were using. They were called distance learning plans, continuity plans. TA had a document they were putting out and giving to school districts they could have access to called emergency. It could have been done through a prior written notice, or it could have been done through an IEP amendment. So number 7 tab in your binder, you need any change your child's current IEP because of school closures. And on that document, it should have said that this plan is only in place during school closures, and if face-to-face instruction resumes, then the student's current IEP goes back into place. And then number 8, you should have a parent contact log. Any contact you've made with any school personnel, and then like I said, from that dedicated email address we talked about on the previous slide, copies, maybe you need to print them out, copy of any important emails. So this is something you can be working on right now as your child's getting ready to go back. Like I said from the previous slide, I either suggest a 3-ring binder and collect your paper documents, or if you want to do it electronic storage, use something like Google Drive or use Dropbox. You get a lot of free storage with Dropbox. But you need to be working on these things now, so when it comes time for your IEP meetings, your 504 meetings, you can have these documents to quickly reference. This binder is also handy when you have parent-teacher conference. So that's what you should be doing right in your binder, creating your email address, getting all your paperwork together, because I'm gonna be honest with you, this is not going to be a typical school year regarding everything. Instruction for the students, IEP meetings, 504 meetings. This is not going to be a typical school year. I experienced several virtual IEP and 504 meetings starting as early as April 2nd of the end of last school year. And they are very tedious. They have to get through. So that's why I tell you it will be very helpful if you were organized. So one thing I want to say before we get into the meat of the presentation is I want parents to understand whether your child's on an IEP or a 504 plan, it all starts with an evaluation. The special ed process under IDEA and Child Find starts with an evaluation. You have the 13, here in Texas, 14 disabilities that a child can qualify for special ed services. So just because your child has a disability does not mean they automatically get an IEP. It's a two-pronged qualification. They have to have one of the qualifying disabilities, and then they also have to have the need for, and you've heard this term, specially designed instruction. So I will give you an example. If your child needs resource classes, they need inclusion support, even in some schools that do co-teach with a general ed and a regular ed teacher in the same bill, that's specially designed instruction. If your child is strictly going to be in general ed and only have maybe some classroom accommodation, maybe would be on a 504 plan. So just because you have a disability does not mean you automatically get an IEP. Your child has to have a qualifying disability, to have the need for specially designed instruction. But the special ed process starts with you requesting an evaluation, and you're going to do that request in writing now via email, and that starts the process, and then it goes from there. So I have some parents who think that just because their child has a disability, they're automatically, they have to have a need for that specially designed instruction. There will be services offered through from special education teachers and providers. So get into the heart of the presentation. I'm moving this around. I have a couple of questions, and you can put your answers in the chat, or you just things I want you to think about. How many of you have had an experience at an IEP or ARD or 504 meeting where you barely spoke and participated? You just kind of sat at the table and the school district personnel kind of just told you everything, and then you were kind of expected to sign, the meeting was over with. Maybe it seemed like the school personnel was speaking at you instead of to you, you know, and relaying information to you appropriately. So I see this a lot. I know some parents feel this way. So just think about in your child's IEP, ARD, or 504 meetings. Have you ever felt like this? And I ask this question because if you felt like this, you haven't had parent participation, which is a big component of IDEA. You have to have meaningful parent participation. Okay, so how do you get meaningful parent participation in an ARD or a 504 meeting? So I'm going to tell you. First, let's talk about our virtual meetings. There is nowhere in IDEA that says IEP meetings have to happen in person. Even before COVID hit, you could have an IEP meeting via a video call, and many of you know you can do it over the phone. There's nothing in IDEA that says you have to meet in person. So there were some incidences when COVID first hit and school closures first happened, where parents were being told they were not going to get an IEP meeting until face-to-face, they could have them in person. That is not true. So now we know many of you, and I have been in many meetings that have happened virtually. So I'll tell you this, if your child's IEP meeting does not happen because of school closures or other COVID-19 related issues, you need to email your school. You need to call, you need to reach out. School districts are also supposed to be documenting when they have tried to reach out to a parent to have a meeting because of the meeting deadlines, because of being in compliance. So just remember, IEP meetings do not have to be in person. Some of the same principles apply to 504 plan meetings. They can choose to be held virtually or by conference call. So as you prepare for your meetings coming up in the school year, coming school year, more than likely they will be virtually video conference, some form of Zoom or other platform, or they will be, you can participate over the phone. Now let's talk about under IDEA, and like I said, some of the things in this presentation are applied just to individuals who have an IEP, and some apply to IEPs and 504. So right now I'm talking about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and how parental rights concerning your participation in your child's meeting, your evaluation, identification, your child's educational placement. First, we all know you have to get notice of a meeting, 5 school days notice. So they cannot call you the day before and say, we're having an IEP meeting. They cannot do that. 5 school days notice. You have the right to participate in all meetings from the evaluation, identification, placement of your child. You have a right to meet and participate in all meetings related to the provision of FAPE. Remember, FAPE is a free and appropriate public education. So when you're in a meeting and you're deciding your child's services and what classes they need to be in, what related services they need, that is all FAPE, free and appropriate public education. You have a right to be involved in all of those decisions. Then you have the right to consent to any changes to any of those decisions, whether it's a new evaluation, change in placement, change in type of service. You have a right to be involved in all of those. You are a required member of an ARD committee / IEP committee. The only way they can make decisions and conduct a meeting without you is if you give them permission. So as many of you know, on a notice, when you get a notice, it asks you, are you going to be in attendance? And if you're not going to be in attendance, you can in person, you can do it by phone, or you can say, have the meeting without me. But they have to get that written permission to proceed without you because of the parental participation issues and sections of IDEA. So this is how you have your meaningful parent participation. All right, so again, remember, parents are entitled to be members of the IEP committee. You have a right to help develop, review, and revise your child's IEP, okay? This is a decision-making process. Also remember, when you're in IEP meetings, that is a draft IEP. The school district cannot make predetermined placement decisions. Everything still has to go through the IEP committee. Okay, they can't predetermine placement and come and tell you that. You are still part of that committee, and when they do that, they're not allowing you to have any participation. Now let's talk about 504 meetings. Even though this IDEA does not apply to 504 meetings, many districts run 504 meetings similar to IEP meetings. There are no required members, you know, there's no goals and objectives and things like that. But as a parent of a student on a 504 plan, you have a right to meaningful parent participation. So like I said before, I explained how the special ed process starts with evaluation, and your child can either IEP or 504 plan, and the requirements to get an IEP with having a qualifying disability and the need for specially designed instruction. If not, they probably will 504 plan. You still have annual 504 meetings. You still can talk about your parental concerns, because sometimes kids get dismissed from the IEP and move to a 504 plan. And sometimes kids who are on a 504 plan get further evaluation and then move to an IEP. That's the reason why the special ed process starts with an evaluation. Also remember, any type of IEP, this refers to IEP meetings, cannot be held without your consent unless you give permission to proceed if you're absent. So, or also you're gonna do it by phone. They have to know you either participate in person or you participate by phone. Know that they can proceed with the meeting without you. If you are not available to meet on the date that is sent to you in the notice, you let them know you need a new date. They just cannot proceed and have that meeting just because you're not available on that date. They are breaking tenets, core tenets of IDEA when they have meetings without you and there's no documentation that you've given that LEA or that school or that IEP committee permission to proceed without you. I see that happening a lot. I need parents to understand you have to sign and give written documentation, whether it's via email. Most districts want you to mark it on the notice that you will not be in attendance and they can proceed without you. So those are your rights that's how you have meaningful parent participation in an IEP meeting and also some areas of a 504 meeting. So let's mull over this question. Everybody think about your child's past IEP and 504 meeting. What's the number one mistake, you think parents make in preparation for an IEP or 504 meeting? What's the number one mistake you think parents do? They get that notice, the meeting's coming up, whether it's a notice for an ARD meeting or a notice for a 504 meeting. You get that notice. What's the number one mistake you think parents make? So just think about it. Think of some of the, there's some of the mistakes you've made and what you would do differently. So I'll let everybody mull that over for a minute. I see we got a couple of questions going on in the chat and we'll get to those at the end. All right, so everybody, I see in the chat, everybody's kind of posting what they feel is the number one mistake. So let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about things you need to do before your ARD or 504 meeting. One, you need to review your child's current IEP 504 plan evaluation. Remember, if you've made that binder we talked about, or you have that online documentation storage, online storage of your documentation, you can easily access those documents. So in an IEP, you want to review the present levels, you want to review measurable objectives, because remember, you should be getting progress reports in concurrent with report cards. And when it's time for an annual ARD meeting, you always ask for updated progress reports. And then you want to look at the schedule of service. Know what kind of services your child is getting. For a student who has a 504 plan, you want to look at their current 504 plan. You want to look at the current accommodations that your child has. Also, on a 504 plan, your child could also have a behavior intervention plan. You want to look at those targeted behaviors that they're working on in that behavior intervention plan, whether it's an IEP or 504. But with 504, you want to be looking and make sure the accommodations your child is using. If your child is able to talk to you and tell you what's working, ask them what's working for them. Do you use this accommodation? How does your teacher administer this accommodation to you? Ask your students, your child. That is a way to start getting them involved in their IEP and 504 meeting, because we all know here in Texas, IDEA is age 16. Here in Texas is age 14. You start talking about transition and your child starts coming to their IEP meetings and being more involved. But a way you can get them to be more involved before that age is talk to them about what's happening in their classes. Talk to them about what accommodations they're using if they're able to communicate that to you. So you want to review those key documents. We want to talk about this vision statement. If you're able to see this and you're on a computer, let's go back. Oh, give me just a second. I went too far. I have what I call is my vision statement. All of my clients write a vision statement before any meeting. I use it for IEPs and 504 meetings, but it's a prepared statement that highlights what your child will be doing the next 1 to 5 years. We talk about short-term goals. which could be the current school year. We talk about long-term goals, could be school, career-wise, post-secondary education. You want to include, I tell parents to include something personable about their child. Tell them some strengths, some interest of your child, so they get to know other than what's on that piece of paper in that IEP or 504 plan. And then you also want to talk about your concerns. This is where you talk about your issues and the concerns you have. And then remember, you focus on your child's needs. Focus on the child's IEP and 504 plan, the results. Remember, you want to keep future long-term goals in mind. This is not where you want to talk about district resources. Remember, this needs to stay focused on your child. Next, piggybacking off of that, the next thing on the slide is you want to prioritize your child's needs. Keep the focus on your child, not district resources and expectations. You parents, you are never going to win when you get into that battle about district resources. When you keep the focus on what your child needs, that will get you more than focusing on district resources. So these are some key things to be doing in preparation for your child's next meeting, whether it's an IEP or 504. A couple other things, like I said before, for people whose child's on an IEP, you want to request a copy of the most updated progress report. You should be getting those sent home in concurrent with report cards. So your child should get the school report card. You should get an IEP report card, as I call it. Progress report on IEP. You want to look at what goals are marked mastered and not mastered. Non-mastered goals have to be continued in some form or fashion. Remember, we don't want them continue word for word. That's an issue when you see the same IEP goals word for word, IEP after IEP year, IEP after IEP, sorry. But if a child has not mastered a goal, as I say in IEP meetings all the time, it just does not disappear in the iCloud. It just poof, it's gone. They didn't master it, so we're just gonna move on to something else. No, it needs to be addressed in the new proposed goals. Also in the new proposed goals, it needs to use your child's strengths. If they made certain strides on goals, then you need to use those strengths. Those strengths need to be utilized in developing new goals. That is where a lot of research is going right now with IEPs, is we're going to have strength-based present levels and strength-based goals. We still are going to address weaknesses, but we want to move the concentration from deficits to using strengths to help address deficits. So with everything I've just said, remember, you're getting a copy of that progress report. Non-mastered goals need to be addressed in the new proposed goals. So you should be getting that copy of the proposed goals also when you are preparing for an upcoming IEP meeting. You want to make sure your binder is organized. For quick reference, that's the IEP, 504 plan, evaluations, progress reports, everything I talked about earlier in that IEP 504 plan binder. You want to prepare your recommendations. Are there certain accommodations you want added? Questions that you have. You want to also, if there's certain goals, draft some goals. I write goals for clients all the time. Have those things prepared. And then gather all of that the night before. Put it in a bag, have your binder ready, have you a snack, water, all of that. Put it by the front door, put it in your car. If the meeting is not first thing in the morning, it's during the day and you have to go to work, be prepared. Don't be running around trying to get these items and then you get to the school and you're frustrated and all of that. Have all that prepared the night before. And then most importantly, I say, be prepared to listen actively in your child's meeting. So those were the key things to do. So think about some of the question I asked, what's the biggest mistake you feel you've made in preparation? And think about the 2 slides and some of the tips I gave you on preparing for your child's IEP. The biggest thing is make your binder, review your child's documentation, IEP and 504 plan before the meeting. If they're on an IEP, make sure you have updated progress reports and you have a copy of draft goals. You can also get draft copies of the present levels and accommodations and schedule of service. It just depends on every district's a little different because an IEP is still a draft. They think if they send it to you, that's what they're bound to. The document is still a draft until you and that LEA agree and sign off on it. So let's talk about, now you've prepared for the meeting, we're going into the meeting, whether it's an IEP meeting or a 504 meeting. What's the biggest mistake? So everybody think about this. What's the biggest mistake you think parents make during these meetings? Now, if we want to put some answers in the chat, a couple, some suggestions. What's the biggest thing that has gone wrong? The biggest mistake you think you've made during the meeting? Let me see, my chat disappeared. I was gonna read some of them. Oh, here we go. Let's see what we got. We got, somebody said not speaking up, remaining silent, not getting items in writing, not holding the school accountable, proceeding without key persons. That's a big one. All right, so let's go on. Let's talk about some things you can do during the meeting. This is probably the biggest bulk of the presentation because we're actually in the meeting, which is all right. First thing, remember I told you to create that vision statement. You want to read your vision statement. When they ask you, do you have any mom, dad, parents, do you have any concerns? This is where you read your vision statement. Also in a 504 meeting, this is where you can read your statement. You also then ask for a copy of the statement to be included with the 504 plan or IEP. Next thing you need to do is keep an open mind. As many of you's mistake was not asking questions. Seek clarification. If you do not understand something, ask. If you don't understand an acronym, because I did it for many years. I spoke in acronyms: ESY, LRE, BIP, FBA, OT, PT, all of that. If you don't understand something, ask a question. Again, I talked about this. Focus on the outcome, not the process. Don't get in a battle over person. Don't get in a battle over resources. Many of you live in school districts that you're there, you can't move. So you want to make every attempt to sustain that relationship. You want to keep a positive committee and parent relationship because these are people that are teaching and working with your child. So you want to listen actively, state your concerns in a respectful way so that you sustain and keep that positive relationship. Like I've already said, the next one, advocate for your child's rights respectively. No name calling, no yelling. I hate to say it, no cussing. I hate to think I have to say that, but if it gets so emotional and it gets so heated, you have a right in any meeting to ask for a recess, for a break. You either recess that day for a few minutes or you can recess and come back another day. Okay, I advise parents to do that, but do not stay in rooms in those heated discussions. Take a break. And I've said this before, listen actively, especially to items you don't want to hear about your child. Parents get upset when they hear negative things about their child. Remember, everything in an IEP in the present levels is data driven. It cannot be teacher opinions. So sometimes some of the stuff we hear is teacher opinions. Sometimes it's about your child's performance and it may be negative. But remember, you have to listen actively. You got to take the good with the bad. But just because you hear something negative doesn't mean you have to, be back. Remember, our goal is for these school districts and these personnel to give your child the best education. So you want to keep a positive relationship. You want to be as collaborative as possible. I'm not saying not ask for what your child needs, not express your concerns, but do it in a respectful and professional manner. All right. Another thing to do, key actions to take during the meeting. You want to make sure if your child's on an IEP, they are getting specific measurable goals. Okay? It's hard to get progress on a goal that is very generalizable. So I'll give you an example of a goal that's generalized and unmeasurable. Jack will be able to attend in the classroom by increasing time on task. That goal doesn't say, and I've seen goals like this. I've had to rewrite goals because of goals like this. Doesn't say how long, what he's working towards, mastery criteria, any accommodations he will be given, nothing. So a better goal is by the end of 36 instructional weeks, when given activities or assignments at his functional level, Jack will increase his time on task so that he is attending to a task for 15 minutes at a time with no more than 2 verbal reminders, that's 2 supposed to be an S, and 3 out of 5 opportunities as evidenced by observations and event data. That's a measurable goal. Jack is working on attending to a task for 15 minutes with no more than 2 verbal prompts on 3 out of 5 opportunities. That gives you measurable data. So you will know from progress reports if Jack is attending for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes. Do not accept goals that are not measurable. Again, try not to get into parental expectations versus district resources battle. You're not going to win. That moves the focus away from your child. Keep the focus on your child. Know that you do not have to sign an IEP if you do not agree. Everyone's going to learn my little trick here. I tell my clients, even if you're signing electronically, do not sign your name. You can check the disagree, but instead of your name, you need to sign disagree. Do not put your signature anywhere on that document if you disagree. I'm not saying this, but let's just say some things have happened where people have signed their name, that little button that had agree, disagree got changed to agree, and then your signature. So there's no way to prove that you disagreed. So you can still do the little button or check disagree, but do not sign your name. Sign the word disagree on the signature line. So let's see. I see some people in the chat are talking about not being prepared with documentation. Parents don't speak up. They think professionals know it all. That's a key. That's very key. You are an expert on your child. The expert on your child in the educational setting. You're an expert on your child, period. On everything, educational, functional, their behavior. So these are key actions to take during the IEP meeting. All right, so I asked that question at the beginning. What's some of the biggest mistakes? I think I went too many slides. Oh, no. Some of the biggest mistakes that parents make during a meeting, someone put it in the chat. Believing the professionals are the experts. Parents, you are the experts. They're an expert maybe in one area about your child. You are the overall expert. Making requests in writing. Any requests for evaluations, related service, etc. Put everything in writing. Remember, here in Texas, evaluations must be completed in 60 school days under IDEA. Here in Texas, it's 45. So when you make a request for evaluation, you trigger that timeline. We call it the 15, 45, 30-day timeline. They have 15 school days to answer your request for an evaluation. They either say they're going to evaluate, give you consent for evaluation to sign, or they give you a prior written notice of how they're going, why they're refusing to evaluate. That's in 15 school days, so no Saturday and Sunday, from when you request an evaluation. Once you sign consent, they have 45 school days to complete the evaluation. So that doesn't count spring break, Christmas, Thanksgiving, staff development days. Your child has to be in school. Then once your evaluation is finished, they have calendar days. That's where it's different. The first 2 are school days. And this is just, like I said, I don't know if you have any people outside of Texas on the webinar. This is the Texas timeline. The federal law IDEA is 60 days to evaluate, 60 school days. But here in Texas, we're 45. Then they have 30 calendar days to have the meeting. You need to put everything in writing. And if you're sending it from that email I told you to create, that email just for school district emails, then you can, then you can print it out. If you're making that binder I told you that you need to make, you have all that documentation. No matter what you do, especially right now during distance virtual learning, put everything in writing via email. All right, a couple of other mistakes. I don't know if many of you term prior written notice, and it's a little confusing because you usually get this after your IEP meeting, but it's prior to them implementing anything you just agreed upon in the IEP. Be sure you read your prior written notice, okay? It's a description of the actions that the school district is proposing or refusing. It's an explanation of why they're proposing or refusing something. It is a description of evaluation procedures, any other factors about a proposal or refusal. Just remember, it's you've done your IEP meeting, then they give you this prior written notice. It's not prior to the IEP meeting, it's prior to anything being implemented in the IEP. That's where they ask you at the end of your IEP meeting, do you want to waive your 5 school days? Where they have to wait 5 school days to implement anything in the IEP, or you can waive it and it can be implemented immediately. Biggest mistake, do not know what's in this prior written notice. You have to, it's very important. Some of your child's IEPs, because of COVID-19 and the school closures, were changed using prior written notices. Amendments. Be very familiar with this document. Now, I know it's hard because sometimes you finish your IEP meeting, you're tired, you're ready to go. They give you this document. Look at it. It's very important. Other biggest mistakes parents make during the IEP meeting: allowing the evaluation to be presented to you at the first meeting. That is a no-no. Ask for a copy before the meeting to review. That is a lot of information to digest. Okay? Ask for copies of prior to the meeting. Accepting goals and objectives that are not measurable. I talked about this before. You're not going to get adequate progress on child's IEP goals if it's not measurable. Then allowing placement decisions to be made before IEP goals and objectives are written. IEP goals and objectives drive placement. Do not let them tell you your child's going to get this service, be in this class, and then you develop goals and objectives. They should be developed first. Goals and objectives are always written before placement is discussed. So when I say placement, that's schedule of services. When it comes, if you're thinking about parts of an IEP and parts of the meeting. Other mistakes. A lot of times parents will just ask for a related service. Oh, I think my child needs OT or PT. Don't do that. Ask for an evaluation of that related service, okay? Instead of requesting a related service, request the evaluation and assessment to support the need service. And then you accept assessment results. Do not recommend your child needs. If you disagree with an assessment, an evaluation, you have a right to independent education evaluation. But again, it has to be done in writing. Now, if that's approved, that's depending on the school district and who approves them, the special ed approves them. But by law, if you disagree with any pieces of an evaluation, you have a right to request an IE. This is a big one. Allowing to be rushed because there's a next IEP meeting. Do not allow school districts or LEAs to do that. This is a time to learn the most about your child and get the service. Now, if they're running out of time, next meeting, you recess. You don't rush through the rest of the meeting and then sign and feel rushed. You stop and you recess and again, this was in the chat. A lot of people said the biggest mistake they make is not asking questions. Whether it's questions about a service, a goal, you don't know what to ask, something in the present levels, you ask questions. All right. So I think this is our last question about What is the most important item or task parents fail to do once your meeting is over, whether it's an ARD meeting, IEP, or 504 meeting? What is the biggest thing that you think parents fail to do? The most important thing you think they should do, but they fail to do. So let's see what we got going on in the chat, if we get any comments. Oh, let's go back. I don't want to share that just yet. So think about things you failed to do after you've had your meeting. I know it's exhausting. You've prepared for the meeting. You sat through the meeting. You're just glad to come home and you lay down on the couch. School days are school days. It's not business days. It's school days, Monday through Friday. What's the biggest thing you failed to do after the meeting? It could be directly after the meeting. It could be a month after, during the school year after the meeting. What's the biggest thing you think parents fail to do? So we got review and clarify decisions, ask for documentation, thank you everyone for working with their child, signing too quickly, reading the document. All of those are good answers. We got one more. Review and confirm meeting minutes. Perfect. You always ask for the minutes to be read. I-504 meeting, always ask. There's something in there you don't like, it can be changed. And just remember too, some districts do it depending on the case with the parent, but remember, meeting minutes are not supposed to be word for word everything that took place in the meeting. They're supposed to be a summary. But when it's a case that needs to happen, districts do document word for word. Another thing, you can stop in the middle of meetings. You can stop and ask them to read the deliberations up to a certain point, especially when you're in long meetings. So you don't have to sit and have them read 15 minutes worth of deliberations. You can stop and have deliberations read at different chunks throughout your meetings. Let's talk about some of the important things that parents fail to do after a meeting, because we don't want you guys to do that. We want you not to do any of these things. So let's see. I think I've talked about this. I beat it to the ground. You don't read your prior written notice. That's why it's in red. Read your prior written notice, okay? Our PWN, that's what it's called when we abbreviate it, the conclusion of the meeting. You get it before they implement anything you've discussed in the meeting. School is required to give you a notice of 5 days. They ask you, do you want to waive your 5-day waiting period? You can waive it or not. If you waive it, your child's IEP and new services start immediately. If you don't waive it, it will start 5 school days. Like I said before, many school districts sent prior written notice to, document changes to your IEP. If you got one of those via email and agreed to it, you need to find it and go back and put it in that under that I talked about. So that's last agreed upon IEP, and you didn't know how that has changed.
Hey, Shemica, your
Yes.
internet's going in and out. You were a little shaky during that last statement.
Okay, is it better now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know what I said. Oh, some of you might have gotten prior written notices to change your child P from, are we still good? Cindy, is my internet still good? It just started because it told me it wasn't.
No.
How are we doing now? Is it? It's not?
There you go.
Okay. Just let me know. If any of you got prior written notices changing your child's IEP, go back and find that, because that is still prior written notice is still in effect as you start virtual learning now. All right, so important tasks to do after the meeting. You want to update your binder. We're losing it. Okay, what if I sign off and come back?
Okay, try one more time.
What if I sign off and come back?
Well, right now you're perfect.
Oh, I'm perfect?
Right now.
Okay, it's all right. Important tasks to do after the meeting. Update your binder. You want to make sure you're checking in with your teachers, your child's teachers. That can be parent conferences. It can be weekly emails. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Okay. You are allowed to record your meeting. If you haven't,
We lost you're shaking out again. Do you want to try and?
you want me to try to dial out and come back in? This to talk about, and then the COVID stuff at the end.
Somebody said maybe turn off your video.
Try
turning off, just because when you have video and you're trying to speak.
Okay, let me turn off my video.
Try it. If not.
Okay.
If not,
okay, how's that? Is that a little better?
yes.
Okay, I turned off my video. So just keep me posted. All right, so if you have an issue with any child's 504 IEP plan, contact that special ed department or that 504 coordinator. As far as student reports, IEP, read and file.
It's still going in and out.
Okay, let me. Okay.
It like is okay for a second, and it just started. It was a little bit in the beginning, but not bad enough. But now it's getting a little bit worse.
What if I stop and rejoin and try it that way? You think I mean, I have about 15 more minutes. We have time to do that.
Okay.
If you want,
why don't
if
you
not,
try it? I have no idea. So let's try it.
Okay, let me try.
Is,
I'm going to leave, and it takes 2 seconds, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
And I'm gonna reconnect.
Okay. Bye. See you in a minute.
All right. I'll be right back, everybody.
Everybody, stay put. We're going to try and fix the audio. Virtual worlds. You have to be flexible.
If they can't help you resolve, you move up to the special education department head or 504 coordinator. Remember, students with the IEP, you are getting progress reports. If they don't come home a couple of days after report cards, request your progress reports. Check your child's assignments, test scores. Make sure they are getting their accommodations. If you don't understand how an accommodation is being implemented, email that case manager, email the classroom teacher. And just remember, if you have an issue with anything in their plan, whether it's an IEP or 504, do not wait until the next annual meeting to express your concern. Contact that case manager, send it via email. If you have to say something to one of their teachers, still put it in writing, but do not wait a whole year or months before you express a concern. All right, let's talk about 3 key issues right now because of COVID and school closure. Things that have changed your child. I'm particularly talking about, we're talking to parents, the child have an IEP, or parents who have requested an evaluation. All right, remember, initial and reevaluations. School districts are making a good effort to complete evaluations. But remember, face-to-face components may not be able to be done. That will be like your cognitive and achievement tests. That will be evaluations for maybe PT, OT, classroom observations. If you're getting a functional behavior assessment done, things like that may not be able to be done. Some companies who testing protocols for the cognitive achievement test, they have given school districts permission to do those virtually. I don't know how well those can be administered virtually and how well of an evaluation you will get, but districts, that's still on a district decision if they're going to do those protocols virtually. Remember, in some cases, if you can't get the evaluation done, they can do a read. review of existing evaluation data. That way you maybe to help determine eligibility and get your child some needed services at that time before a new evaluation is done. They can review past evaluation data. Some parts of your evaluation can be done remotely: parent rating scales, parent questionnaires, interviews with the parent. So the evaluation can be started. Remember, I told you that the federal laws are still intact with the pandemic, but the U.S. Department of Education is giving some flexibility. Some of the flexibility is with evaluation timeline. Should be in contact with you. They should be keeping you in constant contact about the completion of the evaluation, the plan for completing the evaluation. If it's going to be delayed, you can get intervention and supports in the interim. You do not have to wait. So if your child needs something, an accommodation for virtual learning, you do not have to wait until that evaluation is finished, because it could be a while before it's finished. And remember, because you're using that binder I told you about and that parent contact log, document any conversations you have about an FIE evaluation completion. But I just want you to be aware that some evaluations may go past the 45 school days. As far as 504 plans and evaluations, they are not governed by IDEA, but your district has 504 plan review and reevaluation timelines. You will need to find out that from your district. There's no federal requirement in the law about 504 plans. We just know they do happen every year, but your district procedures and protocols for that. But again, you still want to document if you requested a 504 meeting or if you requested a 504 reevaluation. It could take a little longer than normal. Big talk right now is compensatory services. Giving you the first line is linked to document TEA. It's a 2-page document that explains compensatory services in parent-friendly terms. But remember, our committee individualized decisions regarding the provision of compensatory services. They can't come back and say all the kids who miss speech services are going to get 8 more hours of speech. They can't do that. It's individualized. This is also where your data collection comes in handy. The IE committee should review with the family special education services were reduced or suspended during COVID. You want to look at service logs, temporary schedules, your data collection. That makes it all individualized to your child. Okay, when determining compensatory services, you must review your students' past performance doing distance and virtual learning, okay? Everything has to be considered. The school has some kind of data collection. You need to also have it too. That's why I said if you need some data collection sheets, I can make those available. So some of the things and areas that you need to look at when you're making decisions about compensatory services, look at the last present levels. Look at where your child was functioning academically, behavior, functional. Look at where they are now. Look at progress reports on your measurable goals. Look at parent and teacher observations during distance and virtual learning. Look at work samples. You want to look at all of these data pieces to make decisions about compensatory services. If you still have a question about compensatory services, I would say look at this link I put on the TEA website. It's a PDF that explains compensatory services, really parent-friendly terms. It's only 2 pages. But remember, it has to be individualized, and you have to look at all of your child's data. Oh, we went back too many slides. All right. Data collection. I know this is hard to do. Proper data collection is going to be integral to future IEPs and 504 plans and getting compensatory services. So let me give you some examples of ways you can collect data. Make a video recording of your child doing a task or a skill. Make a portfolio of your child's work. Make video, audio recording. Then you can do also the pencil and paper data collection sheets, especially your child's IEP and you're tracking progress on goals and objectives. But that does not have to be pencil and paper. Now, I do have some data collection sheets for progress on IEP goals. I also have some data collection sheets and duration of behavior, but you can make a video recording of your child. There's all kinds of ways to collect data. We can't tell you how to collect data, but you just need to collect data. And I think we are to the end. Hopefully my internet connection has held up. These are some tools and resources. TEA has a COVID-19 page with more stuff than any of us want to read, okay? That's the link that takes you to the special education page alone. That's where you're gonna find compensatory services, the new guidance out on anything dealing with special ed. That's where they also have resources for professionals. The next thing that came out Monday that I updated is the Centers for Disease Control today with a back to school decision making tool. The link is at the beginning of the chat. It's a PDF, it's 3 pages, talks about everything you need to consider on sending your child back to school. I referenced the vision statement in my presentation. I also have, if you need a parent input form to help you parental input. Remember we talked about meaningful parent participation. I have a list of special education acronyms. I have an IEP at a glance template that you can make for your child's IEP. And then I have data collection sheets. In the corner here is all of my contact information, email, website. The only thing here is I have a private Facebook group for parents. It's called Special Education IEP and 504 Plan Support Group, where you can ask questions. I'll put resources, all of that. So now, Cynthia, I guess question time.
Yeah, so if you go to, I think you were doing pretty well at keeping up with the chat box.
Okay, I'm not, I see Q&A, there's 2 questions in it.
Yeah, so once you take
one question says, from Gray, should we getting general ed report cards? He's in general ed 40%. Yes, if he's in a class that is getting a grade, he should be getting a general ed report card. She also said, when I expressed concerns with general ed teacher, they tell me I had to wait until the IEP meeting to discuss with the whole team. First of all, let me explain, parents. Your child, a special ed student, is a general ed student first. They get everything that a general ed student gets. So if they general ed is getting report, child gets report cards. That's not an IEP and ARD committee discussion. They are general ed students first who receive special ed services. And let's see, do we have anything else in the chat?
There were a couple more Q&As that when you had
okay, let me see.
When you had to leave for a little bit.
I see 2 that were open. Grace
okay,
asked. Okay, go.
Okay, sorry. Can you ask for a certain administrator not to be there? She's so negative and talked over everyone.
If you have a problem with a certain person, you can ask for a different administrator. You can ask for anything. If they do it, it's a different story. But if you're uncomfortable and you feel that person is holding up decision making for your child, you can definitely ask for another person.
This other one I think you answered. Are they allowed to only schedule your meeting for 1 hour with another IEP following yours, so you have to be done?
That's one thing school districts do. Nothing in the law says how long the time limit has to be. They have to schedule it. So if you don't get done, you have to recess and come back. And I know that's tough with work schedules and everything, but there's nothing in the law that says be a certain length of time. That's all up to the school district discretion. If they schedule for an hour and you don't finish, you will have to recess and come back.
If my child had a service withheld from them when they were performing well, it's been over a year since we've asked to get them back. What are our rights?
If you feel that you had a service that was stopped, you can go through the dispute resolution process and procedures. You can file a TEA complaint. And with that issue, you have 1 year to file that complaint from when the issue happened. You can try to work it out with the school district again, but if you feel that that has not happened, your next route is to go dispute resolution processes. You can ask for a mediator from TEA. You can ask for IEP facilitation, someone come in and help facilitate, or you can file a TEA complaint, or if you feel it's a level, you can file for a due process hearing.
Do you have any advice to help kids in ATS for their IEP?
I don't know what ATS is.
I don't either.
If you could tell us what ATS is.
When we hire an attorney, can the ISD refuse to acknowledge him even when LAR form is on file?
No, you have a right in federal law to bring anybody that you want to your meetings. They cannot keep advocates. They cannot keep attorneys from your meetings. You have a right to bring anyone who has an educational need with you to your meetings for your child. Adult transition services, what was the question again?
Do you have any advice to help kids in adult transition services for their IEP?
That and for adult transition services, you need to, if your child's met all their graduation requirements, you need to be focusing on transition goals. You need to be focusing on goals in the community. You need to be focusing on work-related goals. I know it's hard right now because they're not in their typical learning environment, but you could be focusing on working on things for time on task, staying on task for a certain period of time for a job. Because I know they're not getting their CBVI, their community vocational instruction, but you could be doing things around the house. Your school should be able to help you with some things to do in that program. You shouldn't have to come up with these on your own, but you need to be doing work-related, job-related skills.
Since you mentioned it's up to the school to determine the time, and most do an hour, can you request longer than an hour for an ARD meeting?
Yes, you can. You need to put it, you can ask them, hey, I would like to finish this meeting without taking breaks because of my job schedule, my child care schedule. I need this meeting to be at least 2 hours, or I'd like to finish a meeting at one time. Yes, you can request that. And hiring 10 kids ATS. I don't know of any questions before that. We still have a good, maybe 5-10 minutes if people have any more particular questions. I want to make sure everybody understands the things they need to be doing as a result of COVID and school closures. You hear things you do to prepare for your IEP and 504 meetings, but just remember the particular things you need to be doing because of COVID. You need to make sure if you're requesting compensatory services, keeping up with your evaluation timelines, making sure you have any documentation on any paperwork that changes your student's IEP because of virtual learning. Amendment, emergency plan, continuity plan is in effect if your child's going to start school virtually right now in the next couple of weeks. So like I said, Cindy has said the PowerPoint is on the PDF of the PowerPoint is on the Texas Parent to Parent website. These links are, I know they're not live in the PowerPoint, but that's linked to the TEA Special Education COVID-19 page, the Centers for Disease Control tool, and then the 2-page document on compensatory services.
So if we missed any of your questions, now is your chance to bring them up. We will be sending you a evaluation after this. We would appreciate it if you get it back to us, just telling us what you thought of the presentation. It will help us continue to plan to do additional sessions like this. Watch our website. There's a bunch more different sessions coming up. We know with special ed, every day is a new day. You know, there's constantly new things coming out. So stay tuned. Shemica, we really appreciate your time. It was a great
Thank you. I have
presentation.
one other thing. Kelly said she just found out about it. She asked about the recording. Kelly, again, website, the entire presentation I presented is on the website and talks about evaluation piece within this presentation.
Yes.
If not, I appreciate everybody for coming. You know, if you have any other questions, my contact information